Sandrine Demathieu is a kindergarten teacher at Nystrom Elementary in Richmond, and she comes with a wealth of experience in the classroom, having taught both balanced literacy and in structured literacy environments. Laura Babitt is the director of the Berkeley Schools Board of Education. She's a passionate advocate for equity, as well as a proud parent, experienced leader, collaborator, and complex problem solver. And then Megan Potente is co-state director for Decoding Dyslexia California, a grassroots movement dedicated to improving literacy outcomes for students with dyslexia and all struggling readers. A former educator, she has extensive structured literacy experience. So thank you. Let's join them in a round of applause. So Sandrine, what did you think of the film? Are there any important issues that the film addressed well, or something that maybe they missed?
Can you hear me? Awesome. Well, I first want to say thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be up here. The first thing that I was really excited about to see in the film was that they showed how much data the teachers were always collecting, and they showed a little bit about understanding the data and using it to inform their instruction. So that was really exciting. And showing a little bit of how much fun it is to feel the success of learning. I love seeing some of the students shout out, yes, when they learn something. As a kindergarten teacher, I think it can seem very dry to teach decoding skills, and at least as an outsider's perspective, I've always heard from parents and people who come observe my classroom that they're always shocked to see how much fun and how happy students are to be learning these skills. So I was really happy to see that in the film. And so I can go on and talk more, but those are the top things for me, for sure.
Anybody else want to contribute to this question?
Megan, based on what you learned from the film, how would you explain why so many students are not learning how to read?
Well, I really appreciated that they talked about the complexity of the problem. And, you know, we heard the message loud and clear that our teachers really need to understand the science of reading. But I think we need to be, when we focus on the problem, and I'm involved at a state level, so I kind of am like up here, but we need to think about, you know, do teachers have the tools they need? Are our schools set up, the systems in the schools set up to, you know, align with evidence-based practices? Are teachers being trained? Are teachers being trained in the science of reading in their teacher prep? And how much time do we have for our panel? 25 minutes. Well, I'm just going to take this moment to plug a new policy agenda that we, along with my group, Decoding Dyslexia California, along with some other organizations, have published recently, establishing, you know, laying out the importance of addressing this big problem from different points of, as I mentioned, all points in the system, from teacher prep through supporting teachers in schools.
Does anybody else, I'm gonna ask you to chime in on each one if you want to, but you can also just say, no, not me. Sandrine, do you have anything to add?
In my classroom, we always do this sign when we agree, so I echo what you just said as a teacher, working in a school that just implemented science of reading curriculum, so we use SIPs for phonics instruction, and then for language comprehension, depending on the grade, it's different. But we're doing in kindergarten, we're using Let's Know. I don't know if anyone curriculum. But I think it's so important to highlight how much support there needs to be in order to implement new curriculums. It's a ton of work, and it's also very emotional work. So that is something that I wanted to add. Some things that I felt like the movie did miss was the labor it takes, and sometimes the mess. We've lost some teachers during this process, and we are in a teacher shortage. And I think that this war, as we're calling it, is really it. We want to remember that this is a time where we want to be supporting each other, and so keeping this discussion as positive and as supportive as possible is always so important. And so I appreciate you elevating that support is what we need. Thank you.
Laura, why do you think that reading and literacy is so essential for long-term outcomes?
Thank you. First, thank you also for inviting me to be a part of this panel. Thank you all for coming and for all that you all do in your various districts to make sure that all of our students can read. To take that question just a little step further, I'd like to say just from the movie, what the notes were from the movie about why evidence-based reading is so important long-term. It stops the dropping out rates. It stops low employment. It stops kids from joining gangs with all the other kids who are failing. It's key to economic in education based on reading access and that information of reading. Sorry, I'm reading my notes that I took during the movie. It will save us $2 trillion a year. Reading will help students become functional, basic level functioning for medicine, bus schedules, all of those things that we know we have to do just to have basic functionalities. It will take away a loss of $1 billion to the textbook industry and professors, professional benefactors who contribute to our losing $2 trillion. We can do this in a way that all the multi-sensory tools are used. It will create jobs with a lack of reading creates jobs in which no applications are required. That was very eye-opening to me, that he couldn't even take a job that he would have to fill in an application. We will continue not to have dyslexia-friendly schools. Parents will continue to have to drive all around seeking help for their kids. It causes parents to become advocates. Illiteracy is isolating. It breeds inequity. Federal prison will be cut off, and those who are in federal prison are cut off from knowledge and that their life depended on. The school to pipeline prison would not exist. Kids would stop feeling as if something is wrong with them. And kids wouldn't kill kids. Kids and young adults wouldn't sell drugs. Prisons wouldn't be full of non-readers. Ex-cons wouldn't have to become advocates. No prison reform without education reform. It would stop the lack of help at home for impoverished kids. Parents also have benefited from this same whole language curriculum, and so now they don't have the tools that they need to also support their children. Continued unstable families and access to food, lack of interest in reading, lack of quality time spent reading parents and children together, a lack of kids with tools to succeed. And so for me, that's the reason why we are all in this education war. For me, that's the reason why we are all education advocates, because we know that the biggest thing that we are fighting in this education war is poverty. The reason why I joined and became an advocate was because I realized poverty was our biggest enemy. Most of our ails can lead back to not having the tools that we needed to survive and to succeed. And so again, we are in the information age. And so if we continue to have children who can't access information, then we are continuing to engage in a crime ourselves.
I hope all those things come true. Sincerely, Laura, that was a beautiful dream. So, Sandrine, in order to make that kind of reality happen, where we affect change on the spectrum of race and ethnicity and economics, like, what are the parents? What can the parents do? What can we look for early in on school to support literacy development, and what can we do at home?
I love that question. As a kindergarten teacher, I think home practice is huge. It can be as simple as rhyming while you're in the car, playing games. There are a lot of practical things you can research and find, but I'd say I'm reading the room, and I know you're all here most likely for a purpose. So I just want to see with the show of hands, who here is a teacher? Raise your hand, or in some way a teacher. And who here is a parent? Awesome. And so I think the communication between both is so important, as I'm sure you all already know. But in this fight, I think there's so much that is not understood. It's crazy how much our families don't know about the curriculums that are being taught. And so the communication piece is key. And you are all amazing advocates already just by showing up today. The school that I work in is, we're mainly low-income families. And it's really challenging to find the time to have our families be able to put in extra time aside to advocate for their students. And so I want to applaud you for taking that time and having also the privilege of time. So remembering that time spent with your child's time spent advocating, that in itself is a privilege. So please use it as best as you can. And I loved, as the movie had shown, it's so urgent. The movie was really highlighting month by month how much a student needs to have, where a student needs to be, the data that they should be at, asking your teacher, what is the data about my child and what does it mean? The amount of teachers who haven't been taught how to read data and how to explain the data. It's not something to blame a teacher for, but to ask questions like, what training are you receiving for assessing your students and supporting them in gaining that training? We're so lucky to have had grants to train us and grants to provide tutors, reading tutors. So understanding what your school is needing is key to be able to bring change, because if we don't communicate and actually understand what our teachers are needing, it's only going to add more challenge and add to the clash between all parties. If anyone wants to chime in or add anything.
The question is, what should parents look for in school, and what can families do at home?
Excellent question. So for me as a parent, when I came to BUSD, I had a child in high school and I also had a child in elementary school. And I grew up on a phonics-based reading curriculum. And so for me, I I went to the elementary school. I didn't understand. How are you expecting her to just look at this picture and know this word is ball without sounding out ball, B-A-L-L? And how will she know how to read balloon if she doesn't understand the root word is ball without a picture of a balloon? So for me, it was like, what is happening here? I don't even understand how you think my child is going to learn how to read. Not only that, the teacher told me that my kid was behind in reading. And I'm like, but she's reading more books at home than you are presenting here with this fill in the blank curriculum, right? So for me, I think parents, you really need to visit the classrooms, also understand the curriculum yourselves. If you didn't learn that way, most likely your child can benefit from also learning the way that you learned. It could be in addition to, it could be, Xing that out altogether, but I knew for a fact that I had to take care of my child's reading at home, and that's sad. And so I go to the high school, I see all the stats, and I'm talking to the vice principal, like, why are our A through G rates so low? Why do we have so many children who are not graduating eligible to apply to college? And he's telling me, well, it stems from 3rd and 4th grade reading levels. I mean, the prisons learn how many cells they need to build from 3rd and 4th grade test results. And so it's like, what? What is happening here? So I go back to the elementary school, and then I become an advocate for more children because I understand that now more parents don't understand that they really have to take this reading serious at home. You really have to know and do all the supplements. If you can't afford the supplements, then that's when time has to, take precedence. Or you find other people, because for me, I didn't want to just save my child. I started reading groups at home with her friends, with other people's children, so that they could have that phonics-based learning. So unfortunately, right now, I would say continue to put the pressure on your school boards, on state legislation. I am someone who is also going down to the state to fight for us to not become this whole language state that we are, and continue to put pressure on the school boards. I continue to put pressure on our education team, which they know. And as I was watching the film, it's like school boards are so responsible, and the school boards, but it has to get put in front of us. I can't approve what's not put in front of me. I can't approve a curriculum that hasn't been fleshed out with the literacy team, with our educators, that they are not ready to actually receive, that they don't have all the tools that they both said we need. But I can put the pressure from the top, so if everybody is putting pressure at every spoke of this wheel, we're gonna turn it, y'all.
So, one thing that I think is really, this is the real moment that we're in right now, because, so my brother, 13 months older than me, we grew up a long time ago. He also, so I'm a parent of a child with dyslexia, but I'm also a sibling to my brother who had dyslexia. And the experience of my son and the experience of my brother are like the same. I mean, they had the same difficulty accessing effective instruction. It's crazy because we know so much more now. But now in 2023, I think the gift that we have is the reporting of Emily Hanford and the exposure this issue has gotten, and parents now are educated and have access to that information. It's so readily available. I mean, Sold a Story, if you haven't listened to the podcast, is award-winning, and it's, I think it's Apple most listened to podcasts. I mean, there's just no stopping the situation that we're in. Parents, we have the power to advocate for appropriate instruction. I really like how in the film they presented it. Like, the science is there. We all know this is the case, and how is it that our schools and our teacher preparation programs are not changing? I mean, if this is an all hands on deck problem, And I also love how it was presented in a way that it is, not a conservative issue or a liberal issue, but we're all here fighting for our kids from every position. So I don't remember where the question started, but just the power of parents and the role that parents can play in this.
Don't worry. So we're gonna wrap up. Anybody have any last closing remarks? Anything about how we covered how talking to schools or elected officials can be helpful, and we talked about what anybody can do here to ensure that kids get effective reading instruction. But any closing remarks? Anything that you want people to take home with them?
I think we have a question.
Oh.
Just a quick question. Could you repeat the name of that podcast that you just mentioned?
It's called Sold a Story. And I actually put out on the table in a stand, there's a QR code that you can access. Yeah.
Thank you.
We've got 3 minutes left.
So I just want to say another beautiful thing about the film was I really loved highlighting the work of teachers. And so I was an educator, and let me tell you how frustrating it was to enter my first grade class. No, I was teaching 4th grade, and I knew within weeks that I did not know how to teach the children, my 4th graders, to read, and that was devastating to me. So we need to change this for our future teachers.
I'd just like to say again that the more the parent, the teacher, and the student all work together, and the more we put the students first and we put their needs first. I really love the way in the film you saw the teacher saying, this is how I know how to create a lesson plan for this child to meet their needs. And so the more we communicate from home, when the parent reached out and said, hey, how can I support more at home, right? And the teacher is showing, and the student is showing the light turning on and being excited. I mean, no matter what we do at a district level, it always comes back to how close the parent, the teacher, and the student are working together.
I just want to echo that, the communication between the parent and the teacher, working with your school first, and keeping up with the advocacy. All of you here are already doing the work. I just want to keep encouraging that, working together, and making a loud noise up to your district and beyond.
Thank you so much all for coming, for braving the weather, and drive safe. Thank you so much.